Episode 17, 2005, The Ninth Ward Drowned. I heard the wind before I saw the water. It screamed through the cracks in my old house, rattling the windows like a fist pounding to be let in. I remember thinking, maybe it'll pass. Maybe it'll just be another storm. But when you've lived in the Ninth Ward your whole life, you know the difference. The air tasted of salt and something sharp. Fear, maybe. That night, I slept in my chair by the window, just in case. The radio was already nothing but static. At 3 a.m., the sirens started wailing. Dogs barked. I could hear neighbors shouting, their voices thin in the darkness. I opened my door, felt the hot, heavy air push against me, and stepped outside. The sky was wrong. It was bruised purple and sickly green, swirling with something ancient and angry. I stood there, barefoot, listening, waiting for what I already knew was coming. My grandson called from Baton Rouge. "Grandpa, you gotta get out. You gotta leave now." But where would I go? My whole life was here. My wife's photograph on the mantle, the creek in the porch, the smell of magnolia trees blooming after rain. People talk about survival, but sometimes survival is just refusing to leave what's yours behind. I could hear water, somewhere far, then close, then everywhere. By morning, the water was up to my knees. I tried to laugh about it, told myself it wouldn't get much higher. That's what we always say in New Orleans, when the streets flood and the news calls it historic. But we've lived through worse. But this was different. The water was cold, even in August. It crawled up the steps like it had a mind of its own. I watched it soak into the wood, turning everything soft and swollen. Neighbors waded past with backpacks and plastic bags. "Come on, old man! They're opening the Superdome. Buses are coming." I shook my head. Where would I go with a heart like mine and legs that don't move so fast? Besides, who would guard my memories, my house, my wife's roses tangled in the backyard fence? The water was up to my waist by noon. I wrapped my medicines in a towel and climbed onto the kitchen counter. I watched sunlight shimmer on the muddy water inside my house. It was quiet, too quiet for a city that never sleeps. I could hear voices, distant and muffled. Some prayed. Some cursed. Some just called out, hoping anyone would hear them. The power died with the afternoon sun. Darkness closed in, heavy and absolute, like the end of the world. I listened to my own breathing, counted each heartbeat. The house groaned, shifting on its old bones. Once, I thought I heard my wife's voice calling my name. I reached out, but it was just the wind scraping against the wall. I thought about leaving, about swimming for the overpass, or waving down a rescue boat. But every time I stood up, my legs shook. My heart thudded, weak and stubborn. That night, I dreamed of dry land, of sunlight on my porch, of laughter echoing in the yard. But when I woke, there was only water, and the sky was still screaming. At dawn, the water was rising, slow and merciless. It touched the pictures on my wall, each one a memory dissolving into the brown current. My wedding photo floated by, face down, before I could grab it. I reached, but my hands shook. I watched my past blur and sink. From outside, a man's voice echoed across the water. "Anybody in there? We got a boat." I tried to call back, but my throat was dry, my words small and lost in the emptiness. The boat drifted past, oars slapping the water, the rescuers' faces hidden by raincoats and desperation. I waved, but they never saw me. I thought of my neighbors, all gone now. I thought of the house 2 doors down, the one with the blue door. Old Mrs. Dupree. She used to bring me sweet potato pie on Sundays. I wondered where she was, or if she was. The water tasted bitter. I remembered being a child, learning to swim in the bayou. My father's hand in mine, his voice promising, "You'll float, son. Just trust the water." Now the water was all there was. I sang to myself, old hymns, broken and trembling. I hummed until my voice was gone, until my body felt too heavy to keep above the surface. I lost track of days. Time was just gray light and darkness, hunger and hope slipping away. my stomach cramped, dry and angry. I found crackers in a drawer, wet and falling apart. I ate them anyway. Every now and then, helicopters roared overhead, chopping the sky open, spraying wind and hope and fear. I waved the towel from the window, but no one looked down. The smell of gasoline and mud seeped through everything. It clung to my skin, my hair, my memory. I thought about the world outside, the one with breakfast diners, jazz bands on street corners, parades. Were they all gone now, too? Would anyone remember this city when the waters left? A radio floated by, silent and dead. I grabbed it, cradled it like a relic. At night, mosquitoes buzzed, hungry and persistent. I slapped at them and thought about the stories my mother used to tell me, how, after a storm, the world was always reborn, green and wild. But I couldn't believe in rebirth, not yet. Not when everything I loved was drowned. Rescue came when I stopped expecting it. A voice outside, young, urgent, desperate, shouted, "Anyone here? We're coming in!" A beam of light swept across my ceiling. Boots sloshed through the muck of my living room. I tried to call out, but my voice cracked, as dry as riverbed clay. A woman's face appeared in the doorway, mud-streaked, kind, fierce. "Sir, we're here to get you out. Can you walk?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure. She waited to me, wrapped an arm around my shoulder, and together we pushed through the water, out into the day. The sky was blue, impossibly, stubbornly blue. Above the shattered roofs and broken power lines, birds circled, silent and confused. The boat was small, crowded with strangers, each holding a bag, a photo, a piece of their old life. We floated down my street, past drowned cars and porches draped in Spanish moss and sorrow. I didn't look back at my house, not yet. I didn't want the last image in my mind to be a tomb. As we drifted toward the highway, I realized, you can lose everything you own and still carry yourself, your memories, your grief, your stubborn hope, out into the sun. Shelter was a word I used to know. Now it meant a stadium, a city inside a city of loss. They brought us to the Superdome, thousands of us, carrying wet bags in silence. We lined up for blankets and water bottles. People wept, but mostly we just stared at each other, hollow and tired. The air buzzed with news, rumors about levees, missing children, who got out, who didn't. I searched the crowd for a familiar face, but everyone was a stranger in this place. I missed my house, the smell of coffee in the morning, the slow groan of my porch steps. I missed my old life, even the aches in my bones. I found a corner on the concrete, spread my damp towel, and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. I lay awake, listening to babies cry, to radios crackling out static, to prayers whispered into the night. A woman beside me sobbed quietly. I reached for her hand, and she squeezed mine, just two survivors in a sea of grief. Sometimes I wondered if the world would remember us. If anyone would understand what it meant to lose everything but the sound of your own breath. Days blurred together under the hard lights of the dome. Morning and night were just announcements. Food, water, lines, doctors. People argued, then comforted each other. A little boy drew pictures on the back of a cardboard box. Blue skies, green grass, a house with a yellow roof. "Is this your home?" I asked him. He nodded, solemn. "I want to go back," he whispered. I wanted to tell him it would be okay, but my voice stuck in my throat. So I patted his shoulder and said nothing. Sometimes I heard people singing, old gospel songs that rose and fell, trembling through the noise and heat. Their voices reminded me of Sunday mornings, of hope that stubbornly survived the flood. One morning, a reporter walked through with a camera. He asked if I wanted to say something. I thought about it. What could I say that wouldn't be drowned out by the noise, the sorrow, the sheer number of us? Instead, I looked into the lens and simply nodded, hoping my eyes would tell the story better than words. When night came again, I closed my eyes and tried to remember my wife's voice, my house before the storm, the feeling of safety. I promised myself that if I ever stood on dry ground again, I would remember those who were lost, and honor what we managed to save, even if it was only each other. When they finally let us leave the Superdome, The city looked like the memory of a nightmare. We stepped into streets caked with mud, lined with ruined cars and shattered glass. The air smelled of rot and gasoline, a heaviness that sat on my tongue. The Ninth Ward was unrecognizable. Houses ripped open, front doors gone, roofs caved in. We walked in silence, moving through what used to be our lives. I found my block by the magnolia tree, though the branches were broken, and the flowers washed away. My house was there, but hollow, walls stained by water, floorboards warped and buckled, everything inside scattered or gone. I stepped through the doorway, careful where I put my feet. Each room was an echo of the life I'd built, the laughter I'd once heard, the love that filled every corner. I found my wife's photo, the frame cracked, but her smile untouched beneath the glass. I pressed it to my chest and let myself cry, harder than I had since the storm came. Neighbors wandered, looking for pieces of their own lives. Some shouted names. Some knelt in the dirt. We picked up what we could, a teacup, a child's shoe, a wedding ring caught in the mud. It was a strange kind of comfort, to be back where the pain began, among people who understood it without words. The news called us survivors. Sometimes, I think they don't know what the word means. Surviving is more than breathing through disaster. It's waking up every morning with loss pressed against your chest, and standing up anyway. We cleaned what we could, helped each other lift memories from the muck. Someone hammered boards over broken windows. Someone else passed out sandwiches. We cooked together, shared what little we had, laughed sometimes, cried more often. I learned new names, built new routines. The city changed, and so did I. I planted new magnolias beside the old, in the same earth that tried to drown us. I told my grandson, "We'll bloom again. Maybe not the way we were, but we'll bloom." Some nights, I sit on the stoop and listen to the sound of distant jazz drifting through the broken streets. I close my eyes, breathing in hope and sorrow all tangled together. If you ask me what I lost, I can list every name and thing. But if you ask me what I kept, it's this. I kept my story. I kept my heart. And as long as I remember, the Ninth Ward will never truly be gone.